Well, I suppose the most significant line to have emerged overnight is the 4 men who were arrested, young men, all under 30, who were arrested in the connection with the terrorist attack outside the Liverpool Women's Hospital, have now all been released. That's not a surprise, because what often happens is once they identify who an attacker is, then they start trying to determine key facts like where did they live, who did they associate with, who are their family members. So you get people that are friends, associates, family, relatives of the individual being taken into police custody in question, because the police have to determine whether they were a part of the plot and may pose some risk themselves. But often the vast majority of these people are then arrested and are then released, I should say, in the preceding hours. But I wanted to address a couple of points in Patrick's monologue. Because it was a good monologue, Patrick, and you made some very interesting and pertinent points on this issue of the threat that is faced by asylum seekers. I think that is a very real concern for the police and security services going forward. And I say this for a number of reasons. Now, this individual, this bomber whose device detonated, thankfully not fully, and before he could get into that hospital, was, we know, an asylum seeker. In terms of other incidents that have taken place involving asylum seekers, well, you'll all remember the Parsons Green bombing in September of 2017. Now, that man, Ahmed Hassan, a young man, was an Iraqi asylum seeker who'd had his asylum bid turned down. He was facing deportation again when he then decided to detonate a bomb, a bit like Sunday. Thankfully, it made up of the same explosive substance, didn't fully detonate, but still injured 30 people in that District Line tube train. The other issue which is pertinent to this is the real concerns that authorities have about asylum seekers who throw away, and this is very common for those crossing via the Channel or on the backs of lorries for that matter, their identity documents, so their passports, driving licences, other documents that can identify an individual and allow the authorities to fully check on their background. It's often also difficult to check on someone's background if they come from a war-torn region, understandably. So it's often not that easy for the authorities to be able to fully delve into someone's background and potential previous history of extremism and offending behaviour. And it's very pertinent because of what's happening now on the border with Belarus and Poland, Lithuania and Poland. The authorities in Lithuania have said that in recent weeks some 4,000 people have come across their borders seeking asylum. 24, more than 24 of those 4,000 people who've crossed the border, they have managed to carry out some kind of background checks on and have found that they have been members of and associated with extremist groups out of the Middle East, so involved in the likes of fighting in Syria. That is of great concern to them, obviously. These people will be deported from their soil again. But the authorities here in this country, Patrick and Mercy, share that same concern, because it's not as easy to get in and delve into the background of these individuals, because they're throwing away their documents, because we have a history, thankfully rare, but still there is a pattern of some individuals who've come from these war-torn areas, perhaps damaged by the experiences that they've lived through these war-torn areas, perhaps members of extremist groups, and had taken part in fighting. For instance, one other to mention, of course, Salman Abedi, who set off that bomb in Manchester, at the Manchester Arena, and killed all of these innocent young girls mainly who'd been attending that concert. They too, he too I should say, had been involved in fighting out in Libya. So there are concerns, very pertinent concerns, worth raising, Patrick.